My pleasure.
Now, if Colonel Gaddafi hadn't been so dangerous, he'd have been merely an absurd, comical figure, a man who renamed the months of the year, published incoherent thoughts in a little green book, and ranted. But in his time, he was dangerous, shipping guns and explosives to terrorists around the world. His regime was the longest lasting in the Arab world, but he never achieved his ambition of becoming the new Colonel Nasser. He plundered his country remorselessly. Here's Paul Mason.
Muammar Gaddafi seized power in a military coup in 1969. For the era, it was an ordinary coup, but Gaddafi was no ordinary person. Scarred by the defeat of the Arab nations in the Six-Day War with Israel, Gaddafi was part of a generation of young officers determined to revolutionize the Arab world. In the early 70s, faced with internal dissent, Gaddafi created revolutionary committees. These exerted repression and surveillance into the workplace and the home. At the same time, he issued the famous Green Book, a mixture of Islam, socialism and nationalism. That was the theory. In practice, Gaddafi launched a mercurial, unpredictable and ruthless proxy war against the West that would prove impermeable to diplomacy. After an abortive attempt to torpedo the QE2, he armed the IRA, declaring IRA bombs to be Libyan bombs. He armed and sent troops to fight for Idi Amin in the 70s and later backed the genocidal tyrant Charles Taylor in Liberia. But in the 1980s, Libya's action against the West refocused. It would be less by proxy, more by direct intervention. Libyan diplomats shot and killed PC Yvonne Fletcher in London in 1984. Libyan agents bombed a nightclub in Berlin in 1986. In response, President Reagan ordered the ill-fated airstrike on Gaddafi's Tripoli compound. The leader escaped thanks to a warning from Italian politicians. Then, on the 21st of December 1988, Libyan agents perpetrated the biggest mass murder in British history. A Pan Am flight to New York was blown up in mid-air, killing all 259 people on board and 11 in the town of Lockerbie. But history was about to change for Colonel Gaddafi. The end of the Cold War paved the way for UN sanctions, which during the 1990s began to strangle the Libyan economy. Meanwhile, the Libyan elite began to realise what luxuries might be on offer for an oil-rich country in a globalised and oil-hungry world. In 1999, Libya surrendered 2 suspects for trial over the Lockerbie bombing. One, Abdelbasset El-Megrahi, was convicted. And in 2003, after the fall of Saddam Hussein, Gaddafi made a startling U-turn. He gave up weapons of mass destruction and came in to the Western fold. On the front line of the rapprochement was Tony Blair, a key figure in the background, Saif al-Islam, Gaddafi's son. The collateral benefit for Britain was clear. Oil and trade. BP garnered a major deal. The Gaddafi clan's aim was also clear. They wanted respectability and they wanted the return of Megrahi. In 2007, in the last days of the Blair administration, they got both.
Saif is committed to resolving contentious international and domestic issues through dialogue, debate and peaceful negotiations.
Saif was feted at the London School of Economics.
In theory, Libya is the most democratic state in the world.
Megrahi was released. And then, on the 14th of February this year, history turned again. The one force nobody had counted on, not the CIA, MI6 or the LSE, the Libyan people, rose up and said no more. Tonight, the world is facing a future without Muammar Gaddafi. The man who dreamed of revolution across the Arab world finally gets to see one.